I think Larry Eisenberg, because it's basically come out of the commenting thing.
We started doing reader comments online really seriously around a decade ago.
I started writing in the Times in 2008.
I don't really look for commenters particularly when I'm looking. It's not like I'm looking for names. I'll often scan and I'll be, you can really quickly tell whether the comment is just an attaboy or I hate you, and whether the person has something to say. This is going to sound like I'm sucking up to you, but my favorite commenter of all time is Larry Eisenberg, who I discovered on my own early on. And he was one of our early commenters and one of the most frequent ones. And I really liked what he did because it was clever and creative, but also very sharp. And it's the kind of thing we used to look for in letters to the editor in a way, not necessarily in verse, but what we're looking for in letter to the editor is a really intelligent, incisive commentary that's written well. Somebody who you like to listen to at a dinner table conversation, who's just got a great way of putting things.
A mind that is thoughtless and dour, without an idea in its bower, a feckless dolt with a nuclear bolt, POTUS in this fateful hour. They were writing about Trump to Iran, Our luck, we got him. The thing that is most important to me is I'm getting things off my chest that are really rankling me.
What drove me to begin commenting was the fact that things in my view were getting annoying and or ridiculous, which happened quite a lot during the W administration, though not nearly so much as has been going on lately.
I really enjoy seeing what other people say on certain topics. It's certainly been an interesting 4 years, because when I started, we were entering a campaign, the second campaign of Obama. And then we came into 15 and 16, and suddenly there was an edge to a lot of the articles and to the urgency of the commenters.
I try to comment every day, multiple times a day, and it is an addiction, an obsession, but I love it because it's intellectually stimulating. You're communicating with others who care about these issues, and you don't necessarily get that chance in everyday life.
I particularly like it when the readers start talking to each other. That's really exciting, when a reader says something and then another person responds in a respectful way.
Socrates every now and then writes me a little Jewish comment, which I enjoy.
I do pepper in some Yiddish encouragement to Larry, and he appreciates that and sometimes replies. So I speak to him in Yiddish, as many American Jews occasionally do.
When I started seeing these limericks, I was very amused, and then I realized that this was a shtick of his, and that this was how he responded to the articles. And I very quickly realized, man almighty, he's quick, because he distills the nut of an article in a poem form. I mean, that's a real talent.
When I was 1 in 20, the safety net was bound. Roosevelt gave us entitlements. Our old age would be sound. Then Johnson brought us Medicare and Medicaid as well to augment the entitlements, oldsters sound as a bell. Obama and his Healthcare Act expanded Medicaid, and nursing homes for aged folk so old, so ill are paid. Now I am 8 and 90, and Trump affrights the air. If he destroys our Medicaid, when ill, I will go where?
For me, it's just the constancy of the quality of Larry's work.
He's seeing these op-eds no earlier than the rest of us do. He must do this virtually extemporaneously, which is just amazing.
A cruel trick played by the Lord. He must have been feeling quite bored. A joke that's grotesque, bizarre arabesque, one we earthlings couldn't afford. He chose his least likely creation, devoid of any cerebration, a con artist sham to lead Uncle Sam, an enemy of education.
The limericks are always original, thoughtful. They're always liberal.
The justice that Donald will choose will claim very moderate views. In fact, he or she a terror will be, and that, of course, will not be news. The Donald has metastasized, aggressively spread as surmised. His base is infected and does as directed, like little clone Donalds. Surprised? He has poisoned the water and air, distorted the facts everywhere, tyrants befriended, old friends offended. His reign is just too much to bear. I like that one. That's a good one.
Even though he spends a lot of his time critiquing and criticizing the right, he does do it in a cheerful way.
I met a salesman from an ancient mart, sophisticated, wise, and knowing,
who said, "I've heard a tale of one so smart, a builder of hotels, golf courses too."
A self-styled genius, one devoid of art, a leader unmatched in his troubled land.
Conceived a wall the highest ever built, the opposition mocked his vision grand.
And at its start, these words appeared in gilt. My name is Donald Trump, the president, builder beyond belief, uncanny mind.
A strange hairdo remains, and vast debris of a colossal wall, a unique kind, and hurricanal winds that say, me, me.
He was always writing limericks.
I think he was writing from the time that Beth and I were born.
He wrote limericks with his friend George Gordon,
whom Beth and I called Uncle George as we were growing up. He was my dad's friend from the Army.
And as far back as I can remember, I mean, even to when I was a little kid, I can hear him laughing on the phone with George, talking about limericks or reading limericks to one another that they had written. And ultimately, they did publish a couple of books of limericks.
George sent me a card for Hanukkah in the winter with 2 limericks in it, which I thought were very funny. The first one he sent me that started the whole thing was, there was a young man from Purdue whose girlfriend was long overdue. He said, "'Tis no matter, we'll wed when you're fatter," then caught the next plane to Peru. I had never written a limerick before. I sent him back 2 limericks, and then we would send them back and forth to each other. And I found I had about 30 limericks. So I put together what I thought were the 10 best and wrote to one of the men's magazines and sent him a sample and asked him if he was interested. And he said he was. I sent him 10, and he wrote back and give me $100 for the 10.
I read a number of his things when I was growing up, and at the time he was writing them. And I read some of his limericks too, some of which were a little risque.
A kindly pawnbroker named Just found his 3 gilded balls ringed with rust, but he just couldn't bear to use sandpaper there, so he gave them a light talcum dust.
He wrote in collaboration with his friend George Gordon.
He began to send on limericks to a magazine called Rogue in Chicago. These were all men's magazines. I remember the first time when our 10 limericks came out in this magazine, they were all imitators of Playboy. So if you opened it up, it would be a centerfold with some nude woman, I get this magazine off when it first came out. I get on the train. Sitting next to me in my seat on the train is a nun. I'm afraid to open up the magazine. She's looking at me. She sees this men's magazine, She's not very approving. I'm holding the magazine. Then she's looking out the window. I open it up. It opens up to the centerfold just as she turns and sees it and lets out a gasp, so I closed it. I decided I'll wait till I get home before I look for our story, our limericks.
I've noticed Larry's limericks for a very long time. They're very popular. They're very interesting because most people are not good at poetry. Most people are not good at the limerick form, and Larry is a maestro at it.
I like rhyme. I think it's a natural thing that people like. And I think it's a shame that it's been pretty much abandoned except for hip hop. I loved Alfred Noyes, who wrote the Highwayman. In fact, one of the pieces that I wrote was in the style of Noyes. It was about Madoff. Wall Street was a canyon of darkness along the dusty streets. The moon was a wan white witness observing knavish feats. The subways were sullen and silent, an ill lackluster lure. This is very noisy. And B. Madoff came riding. Bernard Madoff came riding in his limousine lined with velour. The highwayman came riding with a bunch of lace at his throat. I love that poem. A baseball cap on his forehead, an antique watch on his wrist, a coat of Italian fashion, on his mouth a crooked twist. At his neck was a knotted foulard, and his boots were custom made, and he rode with a roguish twinkle, his offshore stash a twinkle, a diamond ring on his pinkle, a Ponzi undismayed. In his boardroom he was waiting, and his mind was cold and clear. His fingers played on the table, his confederate isn't here. He whistled a tuneless duty, and who should then appear but Jones, his sharpest schemer, of trumpery a dreamer, blasphemer all supremer, with his laptop full of cheer. To friends and longtime neighbors, his charm was loud and clear. With gifts to starving orphans, his motives seemed sincere. But he looted their foundations and pillaged foreign nations and ravished regulations in a manner still unclear.
You can't help but notice Larry's work, and they get a lot of recommendations, and deservedly so.
It's an international following. It's mind-blowing. I mean, from South Dakota to, Myanmar.
I am very aware that my father has an extensive and passionate fan club as a contributor to the Times. And it's a fantastic thing to see.
I would not say that I follow him daily in the Times, but often enough I will check, and also often enough he will tell us when he's written something that he particularly likes, or more to the point, he'll tell us how many likes he got.
He talks about the number of likes he got on a limerick, and I say, Dad, this is like a teenager with Instagram.
He'll literally call up and say, it's up to 600,
The POTUS annex mayor concocted a sly plot. For underneath that feral hair, the POTUS schemed a lot. The FBI had used a spy to spy on Trump's campaign, a Democratic Hillary guy and biased in the main. There was no evidence for it, the story fabricated, not even one small grainy bit. The duo was elated. The base, of course, swallowed it whole. Repubs took up the cry. It was a mean FBI mole. That fact they can't deny. Confusion followed hard and fast. The Russian tale a hoax. The Mueller probe is over, past. It's one of Rudy's jokes. Wasn't a happy ending.
I'd have to say that some of his recent work on this administration has been priceless. It's an administration that in some respects lends itself to parody, and with a limerick you can do so much with it.
Ineffable elephantine dawn.
Indigestible half-baked bonbon.
Forgive if I'm stuffy.
Bout hirsute quaffs fluffy.
I'm unhinged since that night he won.
My bridge play is in a deep slump.
It's made me a pain in the rump.
I'm stodgy and static.
My play is erratic.
I'm constantly bidding no Trump. His writing on Trump alone. If I didn't know the guy, I'd love him just for that alone.
I have a great foundation. Use it as a piggy bank. And now New York accuses me of wanton hanky-pank. A lovely portrait of myself for future folks to see, hung on the wall of my golf club, viewed reverentially. I spent a little here and there to bolster my campaign and rewarded a hole-in-one, a trifle in the main. I'd love to dole out for the poor, I just rarely get the chance. So the nice donations my fortunes seem to enhance, and I can't think why. I love the sight of money. Money is my greatest joy. I loved it more than candy, even when I was a boy. I never minded cheating. I'm considered very sly. Like coins out of a blind man's cup I've taken by the by. I'm very fond of Pruitt. He does everything I would. Complaints about nepotism I've never understood. I will not show my tax returns. I cheat as best I can. Yet critics say that I am such a disagreeable man, and I can't think why. I have had a flirty fling or two, and porn stars are my choice. When one agrees to frolic with me, oh, how I rejoice. I do advocate abstinence. It's the right thing to do. It ought to work for others. It's just not my point of view. I had Cohen as my fixer in the many things I did. He was my big Pandora's box where all my deals were hid. And now those nosy New York feds are looking at the box. It makes me very nervous from my tie down to my socks. But I do know why.
The level of acidity in his limericks has definitely increased during the Trump administration. He has made deep inroads in our heads, so why not also in our beds? Distorted our lives, molested our wives, betrayed every woman he weds. Ripped the Constitution to bits, gave Putin his greatest of hits, has betrayed our nation, lies in each oration, is awash in illicit profits.